Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Buckeye Bar Guys. I'm Mike.
And I'm John.
We are here on the Friday after Thanksgiving as we get ready to break down the Ohio State Illinois football game. As probably most people know already, there has been some COVID positive tests within the Buckeye football program this week. So as of right now, we are still a go on the game. We're not sure what players this is affecting. We're not sure if the earlier the earlier rumors earlier in the week that it was 8 players, if that was first test, second test, and whatnot. We've gotten some speculation from some of the beat reporters, but right now that's all it is speculation. So your thoughts, John? I mean, I kind of knew in the back of our head something like this was going to end up happening. It's just that year. So, I mean, what do you think?
I didn't think this was going to happen until Trevor Lawrence had to miss his games. Then I'm like, it's going to hit everybody because I was curious about it for the long. Mertz got his like after the first week, and I'm like, wait a minute, like it took him a day after playing to get COVID, and none of these stars in the South have gotten it yet. So I thought there was something fishy that these guys were holding back their test, or some conspiracy theory in me. But yeah, once Trevor Lawrence had to miss his games, I knew it was going to start hitting other places more prominently. So I would like to say, though, that, we had 1 week where we give up like 500 yards passing, and then the next week where we have all these COVID positives, and Buckeye Twitter does not disappoint with the fan outrage overreaction. So, yeah. I mean, as far as we know, the game's still going on. We saw stills of Justin Fields practicing and, Mose's offensive line practicing. So I feel good about what we have, at least offensively, coming into tomorrow. But yeah, like you said, you had to maybe not know that it was like 100% positive, but you had to have a good idea that this was a real possibility coming into this year. Now, missing any people for 21 days is going to be hard. It doesn't matter they're backup or not. You need your depth. So that's going to be difficult, but hopefully it's hopefully everyone's healthy. And I don't think any of us stress that enough, what we feel that, hopefully these kids are healthy and they're fine. But, when we're talking about the football games, sometimes that gets overlooked. So hopefully it's people that over the next 3 weeks, Buckeyes can be okay without. And I don't think the competition that we have coming up in the next 3 weeks is going to be something that we should get too stressed about. But we still got to find out who the guys are. We don't have 100%, answer on what that is. And also with COVID, I mean, this is a very contagious virus. Like, this is something that we might be seeing more positives pop up in the next, 5 to 10 days. It doesn't, just because they do rapid, daily testing doesn't mean that we're going to have all the answers to this within the next 10 days. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's definitely, uncertainty, and no one likes things that they can't control. So sucks.
I saw yesterday, so the Lantern, which is the Ohio State University newspaper, they released, so the university is going to online learning. That was always the plan after Thanksgiving, that they wanted to be on campus till Thanksgiving. They made it to Thanksgiving. They released their final positivity report for the university population, and that was like at 2.8%. So, which is pretty good considering the outbreaks that are going on right now across the country,
especially in Franklin.
Yeah, and especially in Franklin County. So that is good. They made it to their target date to be on campus till Thanksgiving and then send kids home. It sounds like they'll finish the semester at home, probably start next semester at home. But so, that might be, I mean, things have started spinning way out of control in Ohio and across the rest of the country. So, part of it now maybe that they're going to take the factor of the students out of the this whole the situation. That might going forward be okay for the Buckeyes for the next couple weeks because
Yeah.
less people you're around, less chances you have of getting it. Now, you got to hope that those tests, the morning test, that the ones that initially tested positive, that they did get them out of the quick enough that it didn't affect anybody else. But
Right.
I mean, we're kind of a wait and see. Like right now, they practiced yesterday, and I think they did a walkthrough today, or they're leaving today. They're probably leaving today for Illinois. So I mean, you gotta assume that they haven't shut down the program, so they're playing as of
Yeah.
now. And
Yeah.
I don't think they would. I mean, after all how ticked off Dabo was this week, I don't think Ryan Day is the type of guy that if he felt like that they weren't going to play, or if the university, and I don't think Gene's that way neither. If they felt like they weren't going to play, they're not going to do a travel. So as of right now, they're still traveling. So I mean, I think if they felt like they were in a bad situation, they would just call this week and see if they have enough negative tests for next week.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think Illinois, honestly, I don't think they're a team that is looking to, cancel on someone like that, like what happened with the Florida State thing, anyways. And I'm not sure, can they even do that in the Big Ten? Because,
I don't.
as we our first series of this show, the Super League, as we've pointed out multiple times in the past, that everyone can just do their own thing with this whole COVID scenario. So I'm not sure. I mean, is Illinois allowed just to call the game? Doesn't
I
Ohio
don't.
State have to cancel?
I don't know, but I mean, I didn't think that. I thought Maryland had to take PCR tests, and I guess they didn't. Even
Well, and
though
I
they ended
thought
up.
I thought there was a percentage of guys that were out that you couldn't play, but I guess maybe some of it was like contact tracing that I didn't understand before, but I didn't understand how Wisconsin couldn't play, but Illinois could when
Yeah.
Illinois was missing more people. So I
And
didn't get that.
Minnesota had a thing where they had like 20 something people out. So I mean, like, I don't know. I don't think any of that stuff was really greatly explained to they didn't really get a lot into the contact tracing when they made the rulings to begin with, because it was like kind of like, we'll do the daily tests, and if the PCR test confirms a positive, that player's out. But they never mentioned anything about contact tracing when any of that stuff that they released. So I
Yeah.
always was under the impression that they weren't kind of worrying about it because they were doing daily tests on everybody. So, but
That's what it seemed, but yeah, I don't know.
and that
Maybe
might
I'm
even and that might even be a team by team basis. That might be a team by team. Maybe the Big Ten itself doesn't care so much about the contact tracing because they are testing everybody every day. But if each individual program, that might be, and there's state laws that go into this stuff now. I mean, every governor has a different rule across every one of these states. So maybe in some of these states, you know, contact tracing is a much more serious thing than it is in other states. So those university presidents and those universities have to kind of follow their state rules. So I mean, that could
I
be,
hope the governor of Illinois doesn't get a say in this.
yeah. So I don't know. So all right, so get into Illinois. Been kind of looking around. So they started off the year 0-2. They've won their last 2 weeks. They had a 23-20 win over Rutgers, I believe, and then they blew out Nebraska.
Poor Cornhuskers, man.
Yeah.
I feel for those guys.
Yeah, so they've been yeah, me too, that I mean, they pushed so hard for a season just like us, and they've had bad luck. They started off had a tough season to start off against, but then they didn't get to play Wisconsin. Then they looked good against Penn State, to only get beat up by Illinois. So it's been a weird year for them.
Yeah.
We'll see how they do today against Iowa. Um, so it seems like that they're going definitely. I mean, just going off by their ESPN stats, and I haven't watched a lot of Illinois this year outside the first game against Wisconsin, um, but it seems like they're definitely playing two quarterbacks. I mean, Taylor's 23 of 46 this year. Peters is 26 of 44. They one has 379 yards, the other one has 292 yards. So it definitely seems like Lovey's going with the two QB set this year. So I mean, just your kind of your general thoughts. I mean, nothing on when you look at the stats, nothing is like crazy sticking out to me, but nothing also crazy stuck out to me against Indiana, and we saw what that second half brought to us.
Yeah. So, I mean, looking at Illinois, they're not, I mean, they're not really great offensively. They're not really great defensively. Defense is probably a bigger weakness than their offense is. The offense, it seems like they can run well, but does not seem like they're a very good passing team. But I know they do have some weapons in the passing game. One specific receiver, which I can't pronounce his name, and Mater Baby, I think it is. Yeah. So, I mean, that's what they have. But the rushing game definitely looks strong. I mean, you got guys with like averaging 6 yards per carry. So definitely, you can't take the rushing game lightly. Luckily, that's something that we do well, of course, going back to the COVID thing. Hopefully, our best run stoppers aren't guys that aren't going to be there, which, there is fear that could be.
Yeah, there's fear right now that, I mean, there is some rumors that Tough is one of the, positives, and obviously, especially against run game, he is a big factor of our defense.
Yeah, he's great at diagnosing the run and stuffing it. So, but no, I mean, they run very well. So that'll be a challenge. It doesn't seem, and it seems like actually they run well from kind of like the quarterbacks too, that I didn't really know Peters was a good runner, but if you look at the stat line, I mean, I think I do remember it might have been against Wisconsin that he broke off like a huge run. So that could have actually been most of the yards for the season now that I think about it. Because I was looking at the stat line and I was like, oh, wow, he's actually a decent runner. But I actually believe in that first game he had a really big run.
His long on the year is 31. Okay. So that was probably that game. So he's 15 attempts running the ball, 111 yards, 7.4 average, has a touchdown. Yeah. So I mean, pretty good. I mean, he's their fourth leading rusher on the team. And then they have their other quarterback, the third quarterback is actually the third best rusher on the team.
Isaiah, not Juice Williams, right?
Yeah.
Now is he healthy? I think so, but I don't remember because I expected him. Well, no, he had a decent amount of passing attempts. He had something, like 21 throws for the year, completed 7, something like that.
Yeah. So in their last game, he didn't play in the last game, so he might have been hurt.
Okay.
And that was a blowout against Nebraska. You would think he would have got in.
No, he might be injured.
Yeah. It doesn't.
I honestly didn't even think about that until we started talking because I think I might remember hearing that he got hurt.
Yeah. So yeah, they're running back. So the Brown and Epstein, they both one's 61 for 357 yards, 5.9 average. The other one, Epstein's 55, 338 yards, 6.1 average. So they between the two of them, they have 6 touchdowns, good average per run. So I mean, this actually might be the best running game we've maybe have played all year, just by a true running backs, because I think
that's what it seems like.
These are averages I think we've looked at all year.
So I mean, that might actually be a good thing, not that the pass game, not that it looked pretty at the second half of that last one that we were like, oh, this is going to be a good test for the secondary, but this might be a good test for, our run defense to see if they're actually as tough as what we think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Especially because we have not really gotten because of Penn State's injuries and, and Nebraska, they didn't really use Diedrich as much as I thought they would have when we played them. We haven't really played a good running team yet this year. and doesn't really seem like. I mean, it seems like Michigan State might have some running backs, but they've not been that great this year. And Michigan, their running game has just been an embarrassment. I don't care how good Haskins looked at second half against Rutgers.
Yeah, they need to sustain that a little bit before I'm going to give them any credit for running the ball.
I mean, I've not been impressed with their running backs in some time. So I think this is definitely going to be probably the first game where we've really played some legitimate backs, which is good because I mean, you're gonna if the Buckeyes are going to get where we want the Buckeyes to go. I mean, there's some big backs in the country, so I mean, they're going to be playing them. So
yeah, you got like ETN and Najee Harris at the end of the line there.
Yeah. And that's not saying that these guys are those guys. It's just that you got to actually play a legitimate running games with some legitimate offensive linemen to really, maybe start getting a feel for playing that's,
And their offensive line, like Nebraska, even though Nebraska hasn't done so well this season, but their offensive line is a strength of theirs. I know they had a lot of underrated guys on the line coming in, but because they were originally supposed to be our first game, so I did a lot of research on them. Now I don't know if all those guys are healthy or not. I haven't really stayed up on Illinois football, but that was one of their strengths coming into the season was their offensive line.
Yeah, exactly. Now on their defensive side of the ball, they I mean, I'm looking at the list right now. I mean, and not a lot of sacks. Indiana definitely had more when you were looking down the line. So I don't know how much of I know I'm assuming going off of Lovey, they're going to be playing a lot of cover 2. I mean, that's kind of that coaching tree style.
Yeah,
more cover 2. Doesn't necessarily bring a lot of blitzes. But, when you remember, Dungy back in the day in Tampa Bay, which, this is the same tree, they can blitz. So,
right.
I mean, they're more of a 4-3 style. I'm assuming Illinois, he probably runs similar to that because that's, what he's coached his whole coaching career. Doesn't really look like a lot of sacks necessarily, which is good considering how many sacks we gave up last week. And not a lot of interceptions. But like I said, cover 2, it's not a flashy defense, but it's definitely it doesn't give up a lot of big plays necessarily. And I mean, Lovey's a great defensive mind when it comes to that stuff, coaching that defense. So, I mean, this is the best offense. Obviously, they've played all year. We don't know who's necessarily going to be healthy, not healthy for the Buckeyes, but I am expecting Ohio State, as long as they keep their mind focused, should have their way with them. But, they kind of, every second half this year has just, outside of Nebraska, has just been kind of just, I don't know. Because I don't want to swear right now. So
it's been a little bit of a crap show.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, just on your defense, I mean, I think we know what we're going to get from them. I mean, we've watched I've watched Lovey a lot over the years, not necessarily with Illinois, but with Chicago. And, it's just, again, it's, watching that coaching tree, Dungy's the same way that, they run very similar defenses.
Right.
So, well, I kind of think I know what we're going to get from them.
Yeah. Illinois, I mean, they give up, I think it was like 32 points a game. I think I saw they're scoring like 21. So we're typically, I mean, I would like to think Ohio State's offense is typically better than what a team's average that they give up. Now, Illinois has a small sample size, just like Ohio State does. So things can get sideways on that. You don't always get a clear picture when teams have only played a couple games during the season. So, their defense doesn't seem like it's anything special, anything that should give us much disruption or much trouble. But like you said, you never know. I mean, we all watched the last couple second halves, so things happen.
So, I mean, and we'll get into this later in the game. I think it will be an easy win for Ohio State. Again, there's off the field stuff now that's going to get thrown into this with the COVID stuff. So we're not sure who's playing, not playing, because they're not releasing the list until tomorrow morning. We thought we were going to get that at least this morning, that we could come out and like know for sure who's out, and we could speculate. They don't give their reasoning why they're out, but at least we could speculate that these guys weren't on the list last week, and they played last week against Indiana, so
Right.
these have to be the COVID positives. But so we'll find out in the morning when that is. So kind of want to jump into we'll get into our three things and our score predictions later in the game or later in the show. Kind of wanted to just go over some of the over the next couple days, some of the games we're going to get to see. So today we got some big games today. We got, Iowa State, Texas are both ranked. So I think that one's going to be interesting. We also got Notre Dame, North Carolina later today at 3:30. So those are some good ones. We'll get into the Iowa, Nebraska here in a minute when we talk about Big Ten. Just kind of your thoughts about, at least we got two games today of fully ranked opponents. So what do you think?
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to them. I think I don't have a lot of hope for Nebraska. Iowa's playing very well. Iowa lost a couple games closely, and they've kind of like beat up the teams that they've won against. So, and Nebraska seems like a team that's kind of easy to beat up on right now. So I think Iowa will win that one pretty easily. We'll go into, of course, we got our Big Ten scores.
Yeah. So on the Iowa Texas game, so right now there you have that game as even. So you think Iowa State can? They're the better ranked team, but they're both basically once Iowa State 6-2, Texas 5-2. You think Iowa State can pull this one off? I think they can. But
sorry, I don't. I'm sorry. I was talking about the Iowa Nebraska game today. I don't know if that was my mind went elsewhere. Iowa State, yeah, I think they can. I think they'll beat Texas.
Yeah.
Texas is like one of those teams that they got to actually show that they're impressive before I start thinking they're going to win games. Like I would almost think outside of the out of conference, really small schools, I would take anybody over Texas. I just don't think they're a very good team.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how Texas, they haven't, they've amassed some wins against some lesser opponents, but Iowa State, and not saying Iowa State's the greatest freaking team in the world, but they are 13th in the country. They're 6-2. Matt Campbell is a good coach. They could actually, this is a big game for them because they could really push them into the championship game conversation for the Big 12. Notre Dame, North Carolina. So Notre Dame's a 6-point favorite. That's the 3:30 game today. Notre Dame 8-0. North Carolina 6-2. The game is in Chapel Hill. I'm not sure how many fans the state of North Carolina are allowing in onto games. Your thoughts right now? Part of me really thinks North Carolina is going to knock them off.
Yeah, there's a good part of me that feels that way too, because they got a high-powered offense. But Notre Dame, to their credit, it seemed like offense was a struggle for them at one point. They scored with Clemson. So, yeah. And, they did all right against, who was the team that they just absolutely destroyed that everyone thought was it Pitt? Yeah, that Pitt had this great defense and Notre Dame couldn't score, so it was going to be like a field goal game or something, and they just went out and kicked the crap out of Pitt. So I think they're playing with a lot of confidence right now. I know UNC has a good offense, but they don't have much of a defense, and I like to give Notre Dame a little bit more credit on the defensive side of the ball. So I think Notre Dame's going to win. I think they'll cover, but I wouldn't be completely surprised to see the upset today because, as we all know, UNC, the one thing that they can do is they can score a lot of points quickly.
Yeah. I just think I don't think the playoff thing is going to be as clean as everybody wants it to be. So I think we're going to get a one-loss Notre Dame against a one-loss Clemson for the ACC title. And I think this is going to be where their Notre Dame's loss is going to come. I think North Carolina will knock them off today. I just have that feeling that I think that's going to be, Mac's big signature win, and they get him, really going. I mean, I really like, and I think this today's going to be it for him. He's going to get it today. All right, so tomorrow. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just saying it could happen. I mean, we never know. Notre Dame's like that, most years. Most years you'll get some inconsistent game out of Notre Dame where they just get like beat up, or not even necessarily beat up, but they just get upset by a team that they shouldn't. So yeah, it would not surprise me whatsoever. North Carolina wins this game.
Yeah. All right, the big game tomorrow. So going down the list, it's definitely the Iron Bowl. I'm glad they kept the Iron Bowl going for at least for this year, the Thanksgiving weekend. At least we get a rival game on the weekend. I mean, a couple rivals are playing this week, but that's the game I'm looking forward to for tomorrow, outside of watching us play. So Alabama, big favorite, but both of them are ranked. Auburn only has 2 losses. These games get weird when rival games. I have they said whether Saban's gonna coach or not, or is he definitely out for the game?
I haven't seen an update on that.
Yeah, so I mean, it could be like the last time around when he tested positive. He gets a couple negative tests, couple GAs in the program. Get tested.
You gotta stick this tube up your nose, kid.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not trying to joke around, but when he got interviewed, it was the Georgia game where he got sick, right in front of. I mean, when they interviewed him,
Georgia.
Yeah, when they interviewed him for that game, he looked like he was sick, and I'm like, there's no way in hell you got a negative test, or I'm like, maybe he has the flu. I mean, he could have had something else, and maybe that triggered the false positive on the first go around. But I mean, he didn't look like he was healthy when they were doing the halftime and the end of the game interviews. And I'm just like, I don't know if he really tested negative.
He did look fatigued and out of breath, which those are very prominent symptoms.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes tomorrow. I mean, I don't know if Alabama's going to win by 24.5, but I expect Alabama to win this game. To me, they've looked like the most complete team all year, especially once they got through those first couple games in the season where, took their defense a little bit to get used to, but I mean, they've looked the best offensively and defensively for 60-minute games this whole season.
They're the most complete team for sure. I agree. I think they're going to cover, to be honest with you. I do. I know rivalry games mean something. And of course, this one means everything to all these guys. Like this is kind of like, the game down south, or at least one of them. It's one of them because I mean, Florida and Georgia are pretty serious. I got the crap kicked out of them by Georgia, who has no offense. So,
the other reason why I think this could be possibly a game is unlike our rival, who doesn't ever seem like they want to show up. I mean, you think Alabama has completely dominated this series, but Auburn, Gus has actually beat Auburn or Alabama like 3 or 4 times. So like, I mean,
he's won like 2 out of the last 4 years or something, hasn't he?
So I mean, he has actually. They actually win. I mean, Alabama's wins more, but they actually do win some. So like,
because they beat them in 17 the year that Alabama wins the title. How nice would that be though? Like losing the last week of the season to play in your conference championship and still getting the benefit of the doubt to go to the playoffs. What a luxury that must be. Because I think that happened once to Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State lost to the wrong team, I know, but they beat them 2 out of the last 3 years because they beat them in 17 and they beat them last year.
Yeah.
So he's won quite a few against them. Auburn typically, I haven't watched them close enough to know what they're like. I mean, the line right there kind of tells me a lot. It kind of tells me that people don't think Auburn's a real, contender or threat because the years that they've beaten Alabama, I mean, they've been a really good team when they've done it. Like traditionally, I mean, last year Tua was gone, so I'm not sure what Auburn ended up at the end of the regular season. I know they didn't play in the conference title game, but Tua got hurt, so that helped them a lot. And in 17, they went to the conference championship, so they weren't a bad
Yeah.
school. They weren't a bad team.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I think we're both in agreement there. Alabama's going to win that game. It's just by how much they win it, that'll be up to debate. I'm not saying Alabama couldn't beat Auburn by 24 and a half. I tend to think that game is a little closer than a lot of people think. I still think Alabama's going to win by 14-17. So I mean, it's not like it's going to be a stressful game on Alabama.
Right.
All right, so we're going to get into the Big Ten slate. So today we got Nebraska, Iowa. You kind of talked about earlier on Iowa. So they're 13.5-point favorite. After I've seen them the last couple of weeks, and I have had their games on, I do think they're going to cover. I know Nebraska was my Western pick earlier in the year. It's just I made a mistake on that one. They're not as I don't know. They're just not as good as I thought they were going to be this year. But
now Northwestern's already beat Purdue and Iowa, right?
I know they played at least one of them. I thought they played both of them, but
I'll look it up.
I know they're playing Michigan State today or tomorrow.
Yeah, they've beaten. So they beat Purdue by a touchdown. They beat Iowa by a point. So yeah, they've already played both.
Yeah.
So I mean, at this point, it's kind of like, and they beat Wisconsin. So they just get to walk to the Big Ten title game, right? I mean,
because Wisconsin's ineligible now, so
they pretty much clinched it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they could. I don't think anybody can catch them.
I don't think Michigan State. I mean, Iowa can't throw the ball, and they kick the crap out of Michigan State. So I was going to say, Northwestern, that could be a type of game where it could get messy, and Michigan State can pull out the upset because of just how they've historically played. But I don't think that they're good enough stopping the run that they can.
Yeah, with Minnesota getting with the Wisconsin Minnesota game getting canceled, they're definitely in the driver's seat now. I mean, they beat Wisconsin, and now they're going to be up, how many games in front of them in the win column, and so it's just, I mean, Wisconsin just is not going to have enough firepower and games to come back into the season. So, and the only way that, and you have to play 6 games unless nobody can play, unless everybody has to be below that threshold for not the, then for them to take a champion. And, Northwestern seems like it's definitely going to stay above that threshold. So, I mean,
yep. Agreed.
So Iowa, I think we both think Iowa. So you think they're going to cover too? I think they'll cover today against Nebraska.
Yeah, 2 touchdowns. I think they will. Sorry to my Nebraska friends, but that's just, they haven't done enough to tell me differently.
Indiana, 12-point favorite tomorrow at noon. They're home against Maryland. I actually think Maryland's going to beat them.
Because that's how it always works out for Ohio State. You play a good game and then that team loses to someone they shouldn't.
Yeah. So I think Maryland will beat them. And I mean, what do you think on that one?
We haven't seen Maryland in a couple weeks. So we saw some real good flashes for a couple weeks, but I don't know if it's real or not, because they beat Minnesota, who stinks, and they beat Penn State, who stinks. So Joe Milton threw on Minnesota. I don't think he threw all over them, but he might have. He threw on Minnesota and Penn State. I mean, we've just seen how they've done against everybody and how Minnesota's done against everybody. So I don't know. I think Indiana is going to win the game. I think Indiana is better than Maryland. And I guess it all depends how Talia Tagovailoa, how he does, picking up the blitzes, because they're going to come at him just like they did Justin Fields. So it's going to be how he diagnoses that stuff, and we'll see.
I think the way Maryland could really hurt Indiana is that, and Ohio State didn't try to run the ball a lot with Fields, but they've lost contain on Fields a couple times, and Fields probably should have took off with the ball a little bit more. And I think Maryland will, will try to use Indiana's aggressiveness against them, and they'll run little Tua a little bit more.
And not to get too far off topic, and just real quick. So I got into, how I often get into my Twitter battles with other fan bases. So
Yeah.
I had a Clemson fan last night drop the just impeccable analysis on me that the only reason, one, Justin Fields is no good, if you didn't know, but the only reason Master Teague had the game he did was because Indiana had to account for Justin Fields in the run game. If they didn't have to do that, Master Teague wouldn't have ran well. I'm like, what kind of analysis is that? Like, well, if they didn't have this guy, they could have done this. Well, they do have that guy. Like,
if they didn't have this guy, that's not that good anyway.
Right. And I'm like, you were just dogging him, and now
every other team this year
account for him. That's the only reason they ran well.
And every other team this year has had to account for Justin Fields, but that was Teague's best game of his career. So
I don't. And Fields still ran for like 80 yards, so they didn't do a great job accounting for him. But yeah. Sorry, I didn't want to get off too much of a tangent, but I had to think of that one or say that when it was still fresh in the mind.
I was going to save this one right before ours, but so we're going to jump we'll go back to Penn State, Michigan here in a second. Northwestern, Michigan State, 3:30 game. Northwestern's 13.5-point favorites. I think that they should easily cover that. I'm surprised that that's as low as it is.
I don't think Northwestern has a great offense. I mean, they scored 45 against Maryland, and they've been kind of middle of the pack since then. So I'm going to go say they cover, though. Michigan State's just been too disappointing this year. I mean, outside of their, one win, that was pretty cool. But yeah, I'm not. I think you're right. I think they're going to cover.
And then we go back to noon, who will be playing the same time as we're playing tomorrow. Basically a pick'em game. Michigan's a 2-point favorite against Penn State. This game is the game of the year for the conference.
I mean, what does it say? You're a 2-point favorite at home against a team with no wins.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I want everyone, and I realize there is no real home field advantage. I get that, but I want everyone to take a step back, look at these records for one, and then two, say to yourself, how are you a 2-point favorite against a team that has 0 wins? That. And that speaks volumes to the state of these teams.
I mean, I don't even know why they're playing this game. I was kind of figuring one of these teams would come down with COVID before this game started, but it looks like we're going to be wrong on that.
I'm going to say Michigan covers.
Yeah, I think Michigan will beat them. I have a feeling Michigan's going to win the next 2 weeks, and then there's going to be all these people. The Desmond Howards of the world are going to be like, "Oh, they're going to knock Ohio State off."
It's clicking at the right time, like every year. They found their game.
Yeah,
Dr. Blitz is back.
Yeah, that's how I think that one's going. All right, so let's get into Ohio State, Illinois before and then we'll.
Wait, hold on. Did you say Purdue, Rutgers?
Oh, I missed that one. Purdue, Rutgers. Purdue's a 12-point favorite. What do you think?
Yeah, Purdue wins. Purdue covers.
Yeah. I didn't scroll down far enough.
Man, I mean, I don't know. I don't really know what Purdue's doing. I think Rondale Moore is healthy finally, so.
No, that's gonna be the game. That's gonna be the game after ours tomorrow. So on FS1. All right. I mean, yeah, I think Purdue is gonna cover too. I haven't really got to see much of them this year. I watched their game last week when they got that stupid. They screwed up that offensive pass interference. Yeah. I watched pretty much the whole second half of that game, and what an embarrassment of a call that was.
Right.
Like I would. I'm surprised. I mean, I would have took my fine gladly from the Big Ten on that one if I was a coach. I would have cussed those refs out in the press conference.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's get on here. Ohio State, Illinois. So our 3 things. What do you think? Offensively, what are you looking for the Buckeyes for tomorrow?
Well, I mean, I'm going to take an easy one here. I'm just going to see Justin Fields' rebound because we all know, I mean, to account for 400 total yards in your worst collegiate game, like, oh my gosh, I wish I had these problems. But
Yeah. Yeah,
so
exactly.
I want to see how he rebounds. I think maybe coaches are going to get a little cocky now and think they got some blueprint for Justin Fields because of that last game, and so I think you're going to see different things thrown at him. See how how he rebounds. Champagne's never an easy environment, even if there is little to no environment for these games. But it's also, let's face it, weather is usually crap there. You usually have wind or rain or something. So see how he does in the elements, but also coming off of what was his worst game as a Buckeye.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good one. I'm just gonna go with let's keep the running game going. I liked what I saw last week with Teague and Sermon both. I'm favoring Teague. I want Teague to be my guy as the main power back of this team. That's who I want them. I want to see them have another game like they both did last week. And I think if the running game plays to their potential, then this team, I mean, there's still some other stuff that needs to be fixed. They still got to keep that killer instinct in the second half. But as long as the running game is running, this team's going to be very hard to beat.
Yeah, agreed.
So your thoughts on defense?
How can you say anyone else besides the secondary at this point, or the safeties? Like, I really want to say the linebackers as a whole, because this is going to be, the game where they make their money. This is going to be their bread and butter. You're going to go up against a running team, but even how much Lovey said they're going to still try to run the ball, they're going to try to throw in the middle of the field. You just know they're going to try to go deep and hit big plays on Ohio State. So I got to say the safeties, maybe Marcus Hooker. Well, if we're going to say one guy, let's say Marcus Hooker. Just see how he rebounds, if he can keep the starting role, if he, seems like he plays better in space, see if he keeps his assignments, doesn't, break on plays like he was doing last week. Just see if he kind of learned from that one and can make a step forward.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I'm going to go with that one too. I'll go with the secondary. I just think that they need to, especially the middle part of the secondary. I mean, there's some rumors right now that Hooker, might not try to. I guess pun intended on this. He might have a quick hook if they might be. There's some media members that have got some sources have thrown out there that Proctor might be on the verge of starting, actually, because
starting out right is
So we'll see how that goes. Again, we don't know if either one of them or both of them could be affected with some of this COVID stuff.
Right.
So, I mean, again, that's a wild card right now in this whole situation, but I'm going to go with Hooker. I think that's the smart thing there's just the safeties in general, because if Illinois does I'm not going to say they're going to throw 500 yards on you. I don't know if they're capable of doing that, but if they throw for 300 something yards and make it look pretty easy, then I think we got some stuff that you
got a real problem. Then
we have a lot of issues at that point.
I mean, I think, and I could be wrong, I think they're averaging less than 200 yards in the air per game.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. So
if you're giving up 300 yards in the air tomorrow, tomorrow, and I know I just critiqued the Ohio State fans at the beginning of this show for overreacting, but it would be time to hit the panic button then.
Yeah, I would agree that there would be some this is a team where it seems like they should be able to shut this team down. And all right, so your one player, who's the one player that needs to show up, continue what they're doing, whatever, just has to be the man tomorrow?
You know what? I'm going to say, because I think we're going to get a good dose of runs early on, though, and you got to stop the run to keep them one-dimensional. So even if their passes are working, they're not going to beat you. So I'm going to go one I don't think I've said yet this year. I'm going to say Pete Warner. Pete Warner has to come out. He has to, especially, if the rumors about Tough are true. So Pete Warner has to come out, kind of fill that role, as he has. Pete Warner is great against the run, but just stuff them at the line every chance you can. and just put your defense in a better position. And if they're struggling to move the ball, your offense is going to get more chances and you're going to score more points.
Yeah. I was going to go. Actually, I was going to say Pete too, because you think with the injuries, or the possibly Tough being out. So I'll throw a little caveat to that. We'll see a lot more of if the rumors about Tough is true, and if Gant and Mitchell are healthy. But again, we don't know. We're going to assume that they are good to go. So I'll go with a combo of Gant and Mitchell there. That one of those guys, hopefully both those guys, need to step up, because their numbers are going to be called a lot more than they're going
to get a lot more playing time. It's just that's how it's going to have to happen tomorrow.
Yes.
If Tough Moreland's not playing, one of those two, I mean, it's just natural that Gant's going to get more playing time, and who knows what that's going to do to a rotation. Maybe if it doesn't work out, I don't know if Warner's ever worked at the Mike spot or not, but he might have to move in that extra spot, and you might see Mitchell get in there. You don't know. So, but yeah, they are going to get more playing time tomorrow for sure.
Yeah, and you don't want to see them doing a lot of moving around on the linebackers, because they could possibly move Browning into the middle. I mean, he played the Mike. I mean, they could do that too, but
don't mess with that guy.
I don't think
he's finally feeling natural. Let him do what he's doing.
I want to see him stay where he's at, because he's looked really good the last several weeks. So, all right. So the Buckeyes are 28-point favorite. What's your score prediction?
I'll say that they cover, but it's not going to be anything crazy. I'll say they win let's say 38-7.
I'm going with 42-14. So I think we're similar there. So we both have them covering. I have them covering right at the spot. It's just, I think they're a better team. I think they're going to have a better second half this week around. And I don't think Illinois, I don't see how they could score like Indiana did.
Right. I don't think they got that quarterback or the weapons to do it.
If somehow that happens, I'm going to have to probably be talked down a couple ledges tomorrow night, and then regroup for when we do the review show.
I think you and I are on the same page here. What does Illinois do really well is they run the ball.
Yeah.
What does Ohio State's off or defense do at an elite level is stop the run.
And that's been for years.
We were talking last week. What did we say? Because I think it's a general rule that Ohio State defensive front seven stops teams from getting their averages running the ball. And of course, there's always exceptions. I mean, we've seen it over the years. The kid from Maryland, he had 2 80-yard touchdown runs, in 18 in the first quarter. But it's just like we were talking about last week that the guy, he's only averaging 3 yards per carry. He had -1 rushing yard, Indiana did. So that's not something that I'm not too worried when you're going to come at Ohio State with the run game. So I don't think they have enough to score. I mean, I said 7, but definitely I don't see them getting into the 20s.
Yeah. I don't, maybe Navy back in 14. That was the last time we've really a team that a quote unquote ball control team really, I mean, usually teams that's what their specialty is, that they're a smash mouth run team, and they're just their best defense is just to keep the ball away from you. I mean, that just doesn't work against Ohio State, because you get into third and longs a lot with the Buckeyes at that point. And I think that's kind of my feeling on this game. I mean, the Buckeyes still have some stuff they have to fix. So I don't see them. They haven't really shown, the ability to go much above 42. So I don't see them getting, into the 50s in this game. I mean, last year I would have said this game's a 55-7 game, but that's how this year's team is. So I think we'll call it a day there. Look forward to watching some of the games today and then watching the games tomorrow. So we'll sign off. Hope everybody enjoyed their Thanksgiving yesterday, and hope everybody enjoys their football weekend.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for tuning in today. We'll catch you guys next time. Hopefully, a great Illinois recap show we'll have for you guys on Sunday or Monday.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for coming out to the Buckeye Bar Guys today. I'm John.
And I'm Mike.
OH.
IO.
Well, thank you for watching here, the Buckeye Bar Guys, here on the Buckeye Bar Talk Network. Please subscribe to the network, and when you get the little notification bell, just hit that. Hit all notifications. That way you will get alerted when all the new episodes come up. Comment, like the show, and we hope to you join our community. Come join our bar.
Like, comment, share. I'm John. That's Mike. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.